Welcome to part 2 of Daldo Library's virtual exhibit. As promised, we're going to have a special treat by Dennis. He's going to give us a demonstration on the process of starting at start to finish on an oilscape. Thank you, Dennis.
So today we'd like to paint this painting. It's called Before Sandy. And over here I've demonstrated by use of photography the various steps that we will go over very briefly to come up with this painting right here, which is basically the same painting as this, but I did it at 2 different times. So first what we'll do is pick out of paints, of course. We need various paints for the colors that you're going to be using. So we're going to be using sap green, and we're going to be using some Mars black, some ultramarine blue, some burnt umber, alizarin crimson, and some yellow ochre, and some burnt sienna deep, along with some raw sienna. We're also using Permalva white, which is a nice creamy white, and these are all oil-based paints. When you use oil-based paints, it's good to use odorless turpentine or odorless mineral spirits. And it's also good at various times to use a medium to give layers to your paintings. The tools we use would be various brushes. We're going to use a fan brush. We're going to use this is a watercolor brush, and that's for some fine blending work. A filbert brush, which is a number 6 filbert, and a small flat brush. And we're going to use a script brush over here. And also there's a fine detail brush we're going to use also. And we need a palette knife. We also have a nice blend brush. It's a cheap 50-cent blending brush. So you'll put your paints on your palette. This is my palette that I've used in the past. And you'll see that I have white and green. This is just the way I put it on my palette. You can put it on your palette any way you want. I put my whites here, my greens and my blues, and alizarin crimson, burnt sienna, and burnt umbers over here on this side. And this is the mixing area within here. As you can see, this was a piece of wood, and it turned green because of the various green shades I use all the time. But when you start in a painting such as this, what I do is start with the sky first. So I put a piece of tape, I develop my skyline and my horizon, put a piece of tape perfectly parallel right across, and then I start my sky first. And as you can see on this painting right here, we have alizarin crimson in here, and it's a gradual grade up to a ultramarine blue, a darker blue. And if you look at a sky, specifically around the Jersey coast, you'll see this kind of hue all the way going up. You'll see it darker on top of your sky and lighter toward the horizon. And in this area, you'll see, various colors across the horizon. And in this case, I like to use alizarin crimson. So going back to this part over here, this storyboard, you'll see over here that I did this first. And then the next step would be to do the background water. And I already sketched on my canvas exactly what I want to have developed for an oil-based painting. And this is the final result we're going to go for. So first we make our sketch of the painting on here. So now that you know exactly what you want, you know where you're going. That's important. You have to know where you're going in order to develop the painting. But in this way, in this procedure, anybody could do a painting. So first I do the sky. Some people might not want to do the sky first, but this is just the way I do it. An artist could develop the way he wants to develop his paintings. So the next thing I do is the background. So in the background, I'll use ultramarine blue, I'll use a sap green, and it all depends on the ocean at the time. It depends on what part of New Jersey you're in. It depends on the time of the day. It depends on the atmosphere. So in this case, it was a pretty clear day. So I used ultramarine blue, some sap green, painted the background in, and as you can see, this is the outline of the background waves, of the front wave here, the main wave, and that's what you'll see over here. So basically coming over to here, you'll see bits of green with the ultramarine blue, and to make the motion of waves in the background, you'll have to use a lighter blue, something like the sky that is being reflected off of the waves. The wave will have a reflection. So if the sun is back in this area right here, and the shade is going to be in this area, you'll see a very light area in the back of the wave, and the face of the wave will be darker, and that's how you develop and get that effect of background swells and waves. So after I do that background, I want to start developing the foreground right in here. And to do that, I'll use burnt umber, and I'll make a grade going back into a lighter area over here. And as you can see over here, this is one area I did with the same method. So I used a burnt umber mixed with some white, and I put streaks in over here with a little bit of ultramarine blue. But I didn't put this wash in here yet. I just did this whole area with burnt umber, formaldehyde white, a little ultramarine blue. I threw a little gray in there too. And then once you get that area in and it dries, then you want to make little specks of sand. So how I do that is I use 3 different colors. I'll start off with a black, or burnt umber and black, mix that up with a little mineral spirits, and I'll take a brush such as this. This is a fan brush, and you dip that into the paint, the black paint, the dark paint, and I'll flick it onto the painting, just like this, right across the whole area of sand. And you'll flip these little bits of color that depict sand. And I guess you can't see it from back there, but if you get a close-up shot, you can actually see bits of sand in here. So basically, that's the first part of developing sand. The next thing you have to do is get a lighter color, such as cadmium yellow, and you clean your brush and you dip that into cadmium yellow, and you do the flicking process again. You just gradually flick that little sand particles into your painting, your foreground that you painted already. And once you get the yellow in there, now you're going to go with one more color, blue. You make a blue out of the ultramarine blue and a little bit of white, so it's more like a sky blue. And you clean your brush, and you do the same thing. You dip your fan brush into the paint, and then you just flick that on. So once you've developed this painting with these little small flicks, it'll actually look like sand. And you could keep going. You could keep going. You could do other colors if you want, another brown type of color or a lighter sand color, and just keep on flicking that on so that it actually looks like sand, and it gives it a nice effect. So that would finish this storyboard, which would be the sky, the background ocean, and the foreground sand area. So now you'll see, basically, if you have a canvas, and you start with a blank canvas, you'll have this on your canvas, and you'll look at it and say, what is that? Well, it'll develop. You have to have some patience, that's all. So this is the next thing we want to do. We want to start developing the main wave. And in this we'll use sap green, combined with a little bit of burnt umber and some raw sienna. And you always want to start with your values that are darker first. Your darker values will go in first. And you'll lay that in with you can use a filbert brush, or you can use a small flat brush. But basically a filbert will work good for that. So going back on this side, you'll see that I'll do all these dark areas right here first. I'll lay that in with that dark paint. And what I like to do is put all the paints and colors and values that I'm going to be using on my palette before I even start this. I won't just say, okay, let me do some brown, and now I'm going to go mix up some other color for this medium, mid-tone, and then I'll mix up some other color for the light tone. I won't do that. I'll just have everything ready to go on my palette. And so basically we'll have, after the darks, we'll go to the next value up, which would be a lighter mid value right in here. And then we'll have a lighter tone right in here, which is the light showing through, which you'll see up here also. That's the light showing through. So now once you get that and you develop this portion of the painting, you have to know already where you want your foam. Know that foam is going to be in these lighter areas right here. So we have to know where we're going to make a painting. We have to know that we're looking to do this. So, and then you just have to know how to get to that. And this is how you get